Nobody laughed at the Galactic Assembly. It was the most serious place in the known universe, where representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss matters of peace, trade, and survival. So when Dr. Priya Sharma let out a small, confused chuckle, every alien eye in the chamber turned toward her. "I apologize," she said quickly, raising her hand. "I meant no disrespect. Could you please repeat the question?" Ambassador Lorvin of the Palari Collective tilted his silver head. His species looked like tall, thin humans made of moonlight, with skin that shifted between pale blue and white depending on their mood. Right now, he was confused blue. "The question is simple, Dr. Sharma. For our records, we need to know, how many wars has your species fought?" Priya Sharma was 52 years old. She had spent 30 years studying human history and 10 years representing Earth to alien civilizations. She had answered thousands of questions about humanity, but this one made her pause. "Which era do you mean?" she asked. The chamber fell silent. First speaker, Dinik, the elderly leader of the Galactic Council, leaned forward in his floating chair. He belonged to the Yevian species, beings who looked like walking trees with faces carved into their bark. He had led the council for 300 years and thought he had heard everything. "Era," he repeated. "We do not understand." The question asks for a total number. Priya looked around the massive hall. Hundreds of alien faces stared back at her. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. But all of them shared the same expression: confusion. "Perhaps I should explain," she said carefully. "When you ask about wars, I need to know which time period you are asking about. Ancient history? Medieval times? The modern age? The industrial period? The nuclear age? The wait." Ambassador Lorvin held up a four-fingered hand. "Are you saying you have had wars in multiple eras?" "Yes." "How many eras?" Priya did some quick math in her head. "Depending on how you count them, between 6 and 12 major eras of warfare, each with its own types of conflicts." A ripple of whispers spread through the chamber. Lorvin's skin turned from blue to a pale, worried white. "Dr. Sharma," first speaker Dinik said slowly, "the Palari fought one war in their entire history. It happened 400,000 years ago. It was so terrible that they swore never to fight again. They have kept that promise." "I understand," Priya said quietly. "My own people, the Yevians, have never fought a war. We find the concept disturbing." "I understand that too. Most species in this chamber have fought between 0 and 3 wars in their entire existence as civilizations." Dinik's wooden face somehow managed to look worried. "Are you telling us that humanity has fought more?" Priya took a deep breath. She had known this moment would come someday. Humanity had been in contact with the galaxy for 30 years, but they had never had to fully explain their history. The aliens had been too busy being amazed by human music, human food, human art. They had never asked the hard questions, until now. First speaker, Priya said, "The first recorded war in human history happened approximately 4,700 years ago. It was between two cities in a region called Mesopotamia. And that was your only ancient war?" "No, sir. That was just the beginning." Priya activated her display tablet, and a holographic timeline appeared above her head. "From that point forward, we have records of continuous armed conflict somewhere on our planet for the next 4,700 years. We have not had a single year of global peace in recorded history." The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Several delegates stood up and left the room. One small, furry species in the back row fainted. First speaker, Dinik, slammed his wooden hand against his chair. "Silence. Let the humans speak." The room settled, but the fear was obvious. Priya could see it in their eyes, their tentacles, their antennae. They were looking at her like she was a monster. "Please understand," she said, keeping her voice calm. "I'm not proud of this. Humans are not proud of this. But you asked for the truth, and I will give you the truth." "Then give us a number," Lorvin said. His voice was shaking. "Just tell us. How many wars?" Priya looked at her tablet. The data was all there, collected over centuries by historians who had dedicated their lives to counting humanity's conflicts. "If we count only major wars involving multiple nations or large armies," she said, "the number is approximately 15,000. Silence. If we count smaller conflicts, civil wars, revolutions, and border disputes, she continued, the number rises to over 150,000. More silence. And if we count every armed conflict that resulted in more than 100 deaths. Priya paused. We stop counting. The number becomes meaningless. First speaker, Dinnik stared at her for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. How is your species still alive? Priya Sharma, representative of humanity, historian of Earth, and witness to her people's bloody legacy, gave the only answer she could. We are very good at surviving, first speaker. Perhaps too good. The chamber remained silent. Somewhere in the back, another alien fainted. Priya looked at her timeline, at the thousands of dots representing thousands of wars. She had not even started explaining the details yet. She had not mentioned the weapons, the tactics, the numbers of dead. She had not told them about nuclear bombs or chemical weapons or the time humanity almost destroyed itself not once, but dozens of times. Shall I continue? She asked. Nobody said yes. But nobody said no either. 3 delegates had already left the chamber crying. 2 more had requested medical assistance. 1 small reptilian ambassador had curled into a ball under his desk and refused to come out. Doctor. Priya Sharma stood at the center of the Galactic Assembly and watched civilizations older than human writing struggle to process what she was telling them. Perhaps we should take a break. First speaker, Dinnik suggested. His bark-like skin had turned a pale gray color that Priya had learned meant stress. With respect, first speaker, Priya said, I have not even reached the medieval period yet. The what? The Middle Ages of human history. Roughly 500 to 1500 years ago. Lorvin, the Pelari ambassador, made a sound like glass breaking. You have named periods of your history after your wars. Not exactly, Priya said. We name them after the technologies we used during those wars. The Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Age of Gunpowder, the Nuclear Age. You named an age after the substance you used to kill each other. Several ages, actually. The holographic display above Priya's head showed a map of ancient Earth. Red dots covered the surface like a disease. Each dot was a war. Let me walk you through this simply, Priya said. In the beginning, humans fought with rocks and sticks. We killed each other over food, water, and territory. Then we learned to make bronze weapons. The killing became more efficient. Then iron, then steel, then gunpowder. She touched her tablet, and the timeline expanded. More red dots appeared, then more, then so many that the map turned almost completely red. Each time we invented a new way to kill, we used it. Every single time. Without exception, a Yevian delegate in the second row raised a branch-like arm. Surely some of these were defensive wars? Wars fought to protect your people. Yes, many were defensive, Priya admitted. But here's the thing you must understand about humans. We could not agree on who was defending and who was attacking. Both sides always believed they were right. Both sides always believed God was on their side. Both sides always believed they would win. God, Lorvin asked, a concept we invented to explain the universe. We had hundreds of them. We fought wars over which one was real. The chamber fell even more silent, if that was possible. Priya continued. We fought over land, over water, over gold, over spices, over ideas, over honor, over revenge. We fought because we were bored. We fought because we were scared. We fought because our fathers had fought and their fathers before them. She pulled up a new display showing human population growth over time. A second line showed deaths from warfare. This is the part that may disturb you most, she said. As our population grew, our wars grew larger. In ancient times, a major war might kill 10,000 people. By the medieval period, wars killed hundreds of thousands. By the industrial age, they killed millions. Million. First speaker Dinnik's voice cracked. In a single conflict we call World War I, approximately 20 million people died. Soldiers, civilians, people who had nothing to do with the war except being in the wrong place. Priya paused to let that sink in. And then, 20 years later, we did it again. World War II killed between 70 and 85 million people. We are not certain of the exact number, because too many died to count accurately. A sound filled the chamber. It took Priya a moment to realize it was weeping. Dozens of alien delegates were crying. Some species cried with sounds. Some cried with colors. Some released clouds of emotion carrying chemicals into the air. I know this is difficult to hear, Priya said softly. Believe me, it is difficult to say. These are my people. This is my history. Every human alive carries the weight of these numbers. Lorvin stood up. His silver skin had turned completely white, the Palari color of horror. How? How can a species do this to itself and survive? We ask ourselves that question every day, Priya answered. Do you have an answer? Priya thought for a long moment. We survive because we have to, because giving up is not in our nature, because no matter how many of us die, there are always more humans willing to fight for a better future, even if that fighting creates a worse present. First speaker, Dinnik spoke slowly. You said you reached the nuclear age. What does that mean? Priya felt her stomach tighten. This was the part she had been dreading. It means we invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single second. We built thousands of them. We pointed them at each other. And we came within minutes of using them on several occasions. Minutes. A few phone calls. A few wrong decisions. That is all that separated humanity from extinction on at least 6 occasions that we know of. The display changed to show Earth, beautiful and blue and green, floating in space. Then it showed the same Earth covered in nuclear mushroom clouds. We did not destroy ourselves, Priya said. Obviously, we are still here, but we came close. Closer than any species should ever come. First speaker, Dinnik rose from his floating chair. His ancient body creaked like an old tree in the wind. Dr. Sharma, he said, I must ask you something directly. If humanity has this capacity for violence, this endless hunger for war, why should the Galactic Council not see you as the greatest threat in the known universe? Priya had prepared for this question. She had an answer ready, but she did not use it. Instead, she told the truth. Maybe you should. The private chamber behind the assembly hall was small and quiet. First speaker Dinnik had requested a personal meeting with Dr. Sharma, away from the chaos of the main session. The other delegates needed time to recover from what they had heard. Priya sat across from the ancient Yevian leader. Up close, she could see the rings in his bark skin, hundreds of them, each representing a year of life. Dinnik was over 400 years old. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had welcomed dozens of species into the Galactic Council. He had never met anything like humans. Tell me something, Dinnik said. His voice sounded tired. Do you actually understand the numbers you share with us today? What do you mean? 80 million dead in a single war. Do you comprehend what that means? Can any human actually imagine 80 million individual lives ending? Priya was quiet for a moment. No, she admitted. We cannot. The numbers become abstract after a certain point. We can understand 1 death, 10 deaths, maybe 100. But million? It becomes just a number, a statistic, and that is how you survived, Dinnik said softly. You learned to not feel it. Yes, perhaps. Dinnik rose and walked to a window that looked out into space. Stars glittered like diamonds scattered on black cloth. The Palari fought 1 war, he said. Just one. It lasted 12 years. When it ended, they were so traumatized that they changed their entire society. They outlawed violence in any form. They created systems to prevent conflict before it started. They have not raised a weapon in 400,000 years. That sounds wonderful, Priya said. It is not. Dinnik turned to face her. The Palari are paralyzed. They cannot defend themselves. They cannot make hard decisions. When a threat appears, they run or surrender. They have survived only because the galaxy has been relatively peaceful. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps there's a reason your species survived while being so violent. Perhaps that violence served a purpose. Priya felt uncomfortable. We do not think of it that way. No? Then explain something to me. Dinnik moved closer. You invented nuclear weapons. Weapons that could destroy your entire planet. Why did you not use them? We almost did. Many times. But you did not. Why? Priya thought about the question. She had studied this period of history extensively. The Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the false alarms and near misses that almost ended everything. Fear, she finally said. We were afraid of what would happen if we used them. Both sides knew that if one attacked, the other would respond. Everyone would die, so no one attacked. You were afraid of your own weapons, terrified of them. Dinnick made a sound that might have been a laugh. So you created the ultimate instrument of death, and then you were so scared of it that you did not use it. And that saved you. It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that. It is ridiculous. It is also remarkable. Dinnick sat back down. The Evians would never have invented such weapons. We would have stopped long before we reached that point. We would have decided it was wrong and forbidden the research. That sounds wise. It sounds naive, Dinnick corrected. Because what happens when someone else invents those weapons? Someone who does not share our values? We would have no defense. We would die. Priya understood what he was suggesting. You think our violence made us stronger? I think your violence made you prepared. For the worst. For anything. Dinnick leaned forward. Dr. Sharma, I have led this council for 300 years. I have seen peaceful species wiped out by aggressive ones. I have seen civilizations fall because they forgot how to fight. The galaxy is not as safe as we pretend it is. What are you telling me? I am telling you that when I look at humanity, I see something we need. Something missing from the Galactic Council. He paused. I see survivors. Priya felt a strange emotion rising in her chest. Pride mixed with shame. Hope mixed with horror. We killed millions of our own people, she said. We came within minutes of destroying our entire species. How can you look at that and see anything positive? Because you are still here, Dinnick said simply. The Pelari nearly destroyed themselves once and never recovered. Humanity nearly destroyed itself dozens of times and kept going. You adapted. You learned. Not enough to stop fighting, but enough to survive the fighting. That is a low bar, is it? Tell me, Dr. Sharma. If an enemy threatened Earth tomorrow, what would your people do? The answer came without thinking. We would fight. United? Against an external threat? Yes. We have always been better at fighting outsiders than each other. That is one thing all humans agree on. Dinnick nodded slowly. The Council has enemies. Threats we do not speak of in public. Forces that test our borders and probe our defenses. We have always relied on diplomacy and peaceful resolution. And if diplomacy fails, then we have no answer. Dinnick stood again. Until now, perhaps. Priya stared at him. You want to use us? As soldiers? I want to understand you. And then, maybe I want to learn from you. He walked toward the door. Rest tonight, Dr. Sharma. Tomorrow, you will tell the council the rest. Not just your violence, but what came after it. The institutions you built. The rules you created. The ways you try to be better. We are still trying, Priya said. I know. Dinnick opened the door. That is why there is hope. He left her alone in the small room, surrounded by stars, thinking about 400 years of alien wisdom and 15,000 years of human warfare, and she wondered which would matter more in the end. When the assembly reconvened the next morning, every seat was filled. Word had spread through the station overnight. Species from distant sectors had requested permission to observe. The gallery above the main floor was packed with curious faces, eyes, and sensors of every type. They had all come to hear more about the monsters called humans. Doctor Priya Sharma stood at the center of the chamber once again. But this time, she was not alone. Beside her stood a tall man with dark skin and gray hair. His name was Commander Reese Okonkwo, and he wore the uniform of Earth's United Defense Force. Before I continue, Priya announced, I want to introduce someone. Commander Okonkwo has served in 3 human conflicts. He has seen war firsthand. He carries its scars, both visible and invisible. He is here to help me explain something important. Okonkwo stepped forward. His movements were precise, disciplined, but there was warmth in his eyes. I killed my first enemy when I was 19 years old, he said. The chamber went silent. I did not want to. You probably did not want to die. But we were soldiers, and that was our duty. He paused, letting the words settle. I killed 17 more before my service ended. Each one stays with me. I remember their faces. I wonder about their families. Some nights, I cannot sleep. Lorvin, the Pelari ambassador, raised a trembling hand. Then why did you do it? Because if I did not, my people would have died. My family, my friends, my home. Okonkwo stood straighter. Humans fight because we have something to protect. Not because we love violence, but because we love what violence defends. Priya activated her display. New images appeared above them. Not wars this time. Something different. After World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, we did something remarkable, she said. We created institutions designed to prevent it from happening again. The United Nations, international courts, treaties banning certain weapons, rules for how wars must be fought. A murmur went through the crowd. Scholar Mivan, a Pelari academic who studied extinct species, leaned forward with interest. You created rules for war. Mivan asked, but why? If war is evil, why not simply ban it entirely? We tried, Okonkwo answered. Many times. It never worked. Humans will always fight. We know this about ourselves. So instead of pretending otherwise, we tried to make fighting less cruel. Priya pulled up documents on her display. These are called the Geneva Conventions. They set rules for how prisoners must be treated. They protect civilian hospitals and doctors. They forbid certain weapons that cause unnecessary suffering. And humans follow these rules. Mivan sounded doubtful. Not always. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we commit atrocities that shame our entire species. Priya's voice was heavy. But we try. We hold ourselves accountable. We put war criminals on trial. We teach our children that there are some things you must never do, even in war. Commander Okonkwo spoke again. After I left military service, I joined a peacekeeping force. My job changed from fighting wars to stopping them. For 15 years, I stood between groups that wanted to kill each other and try to find another way. Did it work? Lorvin asked. Sometimes. Not always. But we saved lives. We gave peace a chance to take root. Okonkwo smiled slightly. There are children alive today because I chose to protect instead of attack. That matters to me more than any battle I won. Priya changed the display again. Now it showed images of humans in disaster zones, refugee camps, and hospitals around the world. For every soldier in human history, there have been 100 healers. For every weapon we built 1,000 tools to save lives. Humans invented war, but we also invented medicine, charity, and international aid. She let the images cycle through. When disaster strikes anywhere on Earth, humans from every nation rush to help. We send food, doctors, and supplies to strangers we will never meet. We risk our lives to save people who do not speak our language or share our culture. First speaker, Dennick watched carefully. Why would you do that? What benefit does it bring? No benefit, Priya said. We do it because it is right. Because other people's suffering matters to us, even when those people are strangers. Even when they are former enemies. Okonkwo nodded. After wars end, humans rebuild. Not just our own countries, but the ones we defeated. We have poured resources into healing wounds we created. It is not enough. It will never be enough. But we do it anyway. Scholar Mivan stood up. I have studied your history extensively since yesterday. What you say is true. Humans are violent beyond measure. But you are also generous beyond logic. I cannot understand how both things exist in the same species. Neither can we, Priya admitted. We contain contradictions. We are capable of terrible cruelty and remarkable kindness, sometimes in the same moment. We have never figured out how to be only one thing. Ambassador Lorvin rose slowly. His silver skin had shifted from fear white to something closer to thoughtful blue. You have shown us your wars and your healings, he said. Your destruction and your rebuilding. But I must ask one more question. If another species threatened Earth tomorrow, what would your people do? Priya and Okonkwo exchanged a look. They both knew the answer. We would fight, Okonkwo said. Together. Okonkwo's voice hardened. Humans argue about everything. Politics, religion, money, power. But the moment an outside force threatens our home, we stop arguing. We become one people with one purpose. Priya stepped forward. And Commander, if that force threatened not Earth, but innocent species who could not defend themselves. Okonkwo did not hesitate. We would fight for them too. The chamber went very quiet. The aliens were beginning to understand something about humans that went beyond violence, beyond destruction. Humans were protectors. Dangerous, flawed, terrible protectors. But protectors nonetheless. Scholar Miven had spent her entire career studying dead civilizations. She had walked through the ruins of 100 worlds, piecing together the stories of species that no longer existed. Most of them had been peaceful. Most of them had believed that kindness and cooperation would keep them safe. Most of them had been wrong. Now she stood in the Galactic Assembly, looking at the humans with new eyes. Not eyes of fear, but eyes of fascination. Dr. Sharma, Miven said, I must tell you something that our council does not often discuss in public. In my research, I have documented the extinction of 847 known sentient species throughout galactic history. The chamber shifted uncomfortably. This was not a pleasant topic. Of those 847 species, Miven continued, nearly 600 were classified as peaceful civilizations. They had no military tradition. They relied on diplomacy and goodwill to survive. What happened to them? Commander Okonkwo asked. Various things. Some were conquered by aggressive neighbors. Some were wiped out by cosmic events they could have survived if they had built better defenses. Some simply faded away, unable to adapt to changing conditions. Miven paused, but they are all gone. Every single one. First speaker, Denik, looked troubled. Scholar, what is your point? My point is this. Of the 12 most successful species in galactic history, the ones that have survived the longest and spread the furthest, all 12 have violent origins. Every single one. They learned to fight before they learned to negotiate. They survived because they were dangerous. Miven turned to face the humans. You are not unique in your violence. You are just more honest about it than most. Priya felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For 2 days, she had been defending humanity against horror and disgust. Now someone was offering a different perspective. Does that excuse what we have done? She asked. No, Miven said. Nothing excuses suffering, but it explains something important. The galaxy is not a safe place. It never has been. The species that survive are the ones who can protect themselves. Ambassador Lorvin stood up sharply. His silver skin flashed with anger. This is dangerous thinking. You're suggesting that violence is necessary. That war is acceptable. I am suggesting that reality does not care about our preferences, Miven replied calmly. The Pelari are a beautiful people, kind and gentle and peaceful, but you cannot defend yourselves. If a true threat ever came to your borders, you would be destroyed. Lorvin's skin turned white. That is not true. It is true, and you know it. Miven's voice was not cruel, just honest. You have survived because others have protected you. The Galactic Council has kept the peace, but the Council has no army, no real defense force. We rely on mutual agreements and shared interests. And if those fail, Okonkwo asked, then we hope someone will save us. The chamber fell silent. Nobody wanted to admit what Miven was saying, but nobody could deny it either. Priya stepped forward. Let me tell you something about humans that may surprise you. When we first made contact with the galaxy 30 years ago, Earth was in the middle of 3 separate armed conflicts. We know this, Denik said. But do you know what happened next? Priya smiled slightly. Within 6 months, all 3 conflicts ended. Every nation on Earth signed a temporary peace agreement. Every army stood down. Every weapon was lowered. Why? Because we realized we were not alone. Because we knew that divided, we were weak. But united, we were strong. Priya's voice grew passionate. For the first time in human history, every single person on Earth agreed on something. We agreed that if anything from out there threatened our home, we would face it together. Okonkwo nodded. That agreement still stands. Earth has had minor conflicts since then, but nothing like before. We know now that there are bigger things to worry about than fighting each other. Lorvin looked skeptical. You are saying that fear of external threats made you more peaceful? Fear and hope, Priya said. We want to be part of something larger than ourselves. We want to contribute to the galaxy, not conquer it. but we also want to protect it. And we are very good at protection. Mivan stepped closer to the human delegation. Dr. Sharma, Commander Okonkwo, I must ask you something directly. If the Galactic Council faced a threat it could not handle through diplomacy, would humanity help? Yes, Okonkwo said without hesitation. Even if it meant dying for species you have never met. Especially then. Okonkwo's voice was firm. Humans have always been willing to die for strangers. It is one of our few redeeming qualities. First speaker, Dinnik rose slowly from his chair. His ancient body seemed heavier than before, weighted down by 400 years of avoiding this conversation. I have led this council for 3 centuries, he said. I have always believed that peace was the answer to everything. That if we just talked enough, negotiated enough, compromised enough, we could avoid all conflict. He looked at the humans with something new in his wooden eyes. Respect. But perhaps I was naive. Perhaps the galaxy needs something I could never provide. He turned to the full assembly. Perhaps the galaxy needs protectors. A murmur spread through the chamber. Some aliens looked horrified. Others looked hopeful. Most looked uncertain. Priya spoke into the silence. We are not asking to be your soldiers. We are not asking to fight your wars. We are only asking to stand beside you as equals and partners. And if that partnership is ever threatened, you will not face the threat alone. She paused, then added quietly, that is our promise. And humans keep their promises, even when it costs us everything. The assembly had no response. For the first time in galactic history, a species had offered not trade, not technology, not art, but protection, and nobody knew what to do with it. Voting day arrived with the weight of history pressing down on every delegate in the chamber. 200 species would decide whether humanity deserved a place among the stars or should be kept at arm's length forever. First speaker Dinnik called the session to order. His voice carried through the massive hall, silencing whispered conversations and nervous movements. We are here to decide on humanity's application for full membership in the Galactic Council. Before we vote, I will summarize what we have learned. He activated a central display. Human history scrolled across it in numbers and images. Humanity has fought over 15,000 recorded wars in their short existence. They have killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. They invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet and pointed them at each other. Dinnik paused. By any measure, they are the most violent species ever to request membership. The chamber was completely silent. And yet, Dinnik's voice softened. They're still here. They survived everything they did to themselves. They created rules to limit their own cruelty. They built institutions to prevent future wars. They reached for the stars not to conquer, but to explore. He turned to face the human delegation. Priya and Okonkwo stood straight, waiting. They have offered us something no species has ever offered before. Not technology or trade or art, but protection. They have promised to stand beside us if we face threats we cannot handle alone. Ambassador Lorvin rose. May I speak before the vote? You may. The Palari walked slowly to the center of the chamber. His silver skin shifted through multiple colors as he gathered his thoughts. 400,000 years ago, my people fought a terrible war. We killed millions of each other. The trauma was so deep that we swore never to fight again. He looked at the humans. We kept that promise. For 400,000 years, we have been peaceful. He paused. But I must be honest with you all. Our peace came at a cost. We became afraid. We could not make hard decisions. We could not protect ourselves. We survived only because the galaxy was kind to us. Lorvin turned to face the assembly. When I first heard about human violence, I was horrified. I thought they were monsters. But now I understand something. The Palari were so damaged by one war that we never recovered. Humanity was damaged by thousands of wars and kept going. They did not break. They bent, they suffered, they made terrible mistakes, but they did not break. He walked back to his seat. I do not know if I trust humans, but I respect them, and I believe we need them. Scholar Mivan stood next. I study dead civilizations. I have seen what happens to peaceful species when they face violence they cannot understand. They die. All of them. She gestured toward the humans. For the first time, we have the chance to add a species that knows how to survive. I say we take it. First speaker, Dinnick nodded. Any other statements? No one else rose. Very well. Dr. Sharma, do you have final words? Priya stepped forward. She had prepared a speech. Careful words designed to reassure and persuade. But looking at the hundreds of faces watching her, she decided to speak from the heart instead. We are not proud of our wars. Every human carries the weight of what our ancestors did. We teach our children about the horrors we committed so they will not repeat them. She paused. But we are proud of something else. We are proud that we survived. We are proud that we learned. We are proud that we never gave up trying to be better. She looked at Okonkwo, who gave her a small nod. We will never promise you peace. Humans have never achieved peace, not truly, and I will not lie to you by pretending otherwise. But I will promise you this. If anything threatens this council, if anything threatens the species who have welcomed us into the galaxy, humanity will stand in the way. Her voice grew stronger. We are small compared to many of you. Our history is short. Our technology is basic. But we have one thing that has kept us alive through 15,000 wars. We do not quit. We do not surrender. We do not abandon those we have promised to protect. She finished quietly. That is who we are. That is what we offer. The rest is up to you. First speaker, Dinnick, let the silence hang for a long moment. Then he spoke the words that would change galactic history. The vote will now commence. All in favor of granting humanity full membership, signal your approval. Lights appeared across the chamber. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Some species hesitated, but in the end, the result was clear. 147 in favor, 53 against. Humanity was in. The chamber erupted in a mixture of cheers and worried murmurs. Priya felt tears forming in her eyes. Okonkwo stood rigid, his soldiers' discipline barely holding back his emotion. First speaker, Dinnick, approached them. His wooden face somehow managed to look pleased. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humans. I hope we do not regret this. So do we, Priya said honestly. Later, as the Earth delegation's ship prepared to depart, Lorvin came to say goodbye. His silver skin was a calm, peaceful blue. Dr. Sharma, I must ask you one final question. Do you think humanity will ever stop fighting? Priya thought about 15,000 wars, about nuclear weapons and genocide and all the terrible things her species had done. But she also thought about healers and peacekeepers and children learning that violence was wrong. Probably not, she said, but we will never stop trying to be worthy of peace. Lorvin nodded slowly. Then perhaps there is hope for all of us. The ship lifted away from Station Meridian. Okonkwo stood beside Priya at the observation window, watching the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Do you think we made the right impression? He asked. Priya considered the question. They had shared their worst secrets, their bloodiest history, their deepest shame, and somehow it had been enough. We told them the truth, she said. That is all we can do. The rest is up to history. She smiled slightly. And history is something we humans know how to make.